Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time we're going way beyond the usual billionaire origin story, We're talking Jeff Bezos, but not just focusing on Amazon as we all know it.
Right.
We've got some really cool sources on his family background, articles, even some stuff about historical figures like Andrew Carnegie. Oh, and some interesting tidbits even from Bezos' own Wikipedia page.
That's key. I mean, if we want to understand the man himself, we got to understand those influences, not just the company headlines.
Exactly. So buckle up because this one gets surprising fast. Okay, so Bezos' mom, Jackie, was only 16 when he was born. 16.
Wow.
And get this, she actually brought baby Jeff to her night school classes while finishing high school.
That's some serious dedication.
Right.
And think about it. Early 1960s, way before any kind of support system we have today for young parents.
Yeah, that's true.
That kind of grit. It's not just personal,
Yeah.
It speaks to a whole societal thing they were dealing with.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if that spirit of overcoming odds, like that got passed down to Jeff somehow. But wait, the family story gets even more interesting. His stepfather, Miguel, adopted him.
Oh, wow.
Meaning Jeff didn't have a relationship with his biological father until much later.
I can't even imagine how that shaped his outlook on family.
Me neither. And commitment.
It's a whole other psychological layer to think about.
Oh.
And it makes his parents investing $250,000 in Amazon back in '95 even more wild.
Wait, $250,000. That's huge.
Huge. And remember, this was when Amazon was just an online bookstore, basically. Jeff himself apparently warned them there was a 70% chance they'd lose it all.
Okay, so was this like blind faith, just incredible luck, or did they see something in him, maybe stemming from those early life experiences, that told them this crazy idea could actually work?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets at the heart of what we're trying to do here. How much of Bezos' success was sheer force of will, vision, and how much was the context that family support, both financial and emotional? Not every entrepreneur has that.
Yeah, no kidding. Makes you think. If even Bezos had those safety nets, what does that say about the barriers others face?
Right. And it gets even more interesting when you think about what Amazon became. Everyone knows the bookstore origin story, but it's Amazon Web Services, AWS. That's the mind-blowing part.
You're right. I always forget how massive AWS actually is. Honestly, though, I don't really get how it works.
Well, basically, it's the backbone of the internet as we know it. Websites, apps, even government systems rely on AWS. One expert said it like this: infinitely more people interact with AWS daily than with Amazon's retail side.
Wow. That's way more impact than just getting my packages delivered fast. What was his plan? Did Bezos foresee this whole cloud computing boom? Or was it just a happy accident?
Now that is where things get interesting. Was it strategic genius or just a really good solution they built for themselves and then realized, hey, others could use this too? Either way, it shows a certain ruthlessness in execution.
Ruthlessness? That's an interesting way to put it. It makes me think about the whole debate around Bezos' philanthropy. Early on, he was pretty quiet on that front, especially compared to other tech giants.
Practically invisible.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of flack for it. Then boom, the Day One Families Fund to fight family homelessness, followed by the Bezos Earth Fund, a $10 billion commitment to fight climate change. Almost like he wanted to make a big splash,
Yeah.
Silence the critics all at once.
Yeah, and there were specifics, right? Like Solo Por Hoy Inc. in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And LA Family Housing, getting grants from that Day One Families Fund to tackle homelessness head on.
And what's interesting is the lack of strings attached to those grants. It's trusting these organizations know what's best for their communities. Very different from that top-down, I know best approach some philanthropists take.
But even with all that, there's pushback. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
People arguing that family homelessness is just one piece of a much bigger problem, and that neglecting chronically homeless individuals is a misstep.
Exactly. And with the Earth Fund, some environmental groups say it doesn't go far enough, to address the root causes of climate change.
Right.
Like corporate pollution.
It's like Bezos can't win. No matter how much he gives, there's always a but.
It's the paradox we're dealing with here. Bezos is praised for his philanthropy, but Amazon's labor practices tax avoidance, environmental impact. It all casts a shadow. And those criticisms are often tied to Amazon's rapid growth, which, remember, was fueled by those early investments from his family. It's a fascinating cycle.
So are we saying his family's support inadvertently contributed to the very issues people criticize him for now?
It's not that simple, but the connections are definitely there. And that complexity is what makes Bezos so fascinating to study. He embodies the contradictions of our time, the potential and the peril of immense wealth and ambition.
Which brings us to an interesting parallel. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate who became a huge philanthropist in the early 20th century. Didn't he write that Gospel of Wealth thing?
He did. It argued that the wealthy have a moral duty to use their fortunes for good, for the betterment of society. He poured his money into libraries, universities, things he believed would create lasting opportunity for everyone.
Interesting. So is Bezos following that playbook? Or is his approach to philanthropy fundamentally different?
That's what we need to figure out. Is he trying to uplift society as a whole? Or is he more focused on specific causes he finds compelling, even if they're less systemic?
And this is all before we even get to the Amazon HQ2 saga, which was a whole other level of controversy. Remember cities practically begging Amazon to set up shop?
It was like a corporate beauty pageant, each city vying for Amazon's favor with tax breaks and promises. They ultimately chose Arlington, Virginia, and Long Island City in New York. But then the backlash in New York was intense. Concerns about gentrification, the influence of big tech on local politics.
Yeah. It really showed that tension between attracting big business and the potential downsides for communities.
And it all ties back to Bezos' leadership, the culture he fostered at Amazon. That drive to dominate, to be the biggest and the best, comes with consequences.
So are we saying Bezos' ambition is inherently a bad thing?
Not necessarily. But it definitely raises questions about the trade-offs we make for convenience innovation, low prices, and whether there's a way to reconcile those with ethical business practices and genuine social impact.
We've got a lot more to unpack here, folks, but one thing's for sure. Jeff Bezos is more than just a billionaire with a space program. His story is a reflection of our own desires, our anxieties, and the moral dilemmas of the 21st century.
And that HQ2 controversy is just the beginning when you think about Amazon's impact. Let's face it, their treatment of workers has been under fire for years.
It's tough to ignore those headlines about the warehouse conditions. The injury rates, the pressure to work so fast, makes you wonder if the convenience and speed we love as consumers, if it comes at a human cost.
It raises a big question about our values as a society. Are we okay with questionable labor practices just for cheap stuff and fast shipping?
Right. And it's not just the working conditions. The wage debate continues, even with Amazon's $15 minimum wage. I mean, in some cities, that's barely enough to survive. It makes the argument for a living wage, tied to the actual cost of living. It makes that feel so much more urgent.
Absolutely. And don't forget the impact on small businesses. Some say Amazon's creating a retail monopoly, squeezing out those local stores and ultimately limiting our choices as consumers.
It's like David and Goliath, but on a massive scale.
Yes.
It feels like we're constantly wrestling with the downsides of Amazon's success. But it's important to acknowledge the other side, too. I mean, Amazon has created tons of jobs, made a huge range of products affordable, and pioneered innovations in e-commerce and cloud computing. It's complicated.
Very complicated. And to be fair, Amazon has taken steps to address some of the criticisms. Investing in renewable energy, increasing warehouse safety, creating employee development programs. But the question remains, is it enough? Can a company this big with that drive for growth, can it really prioritize ethical practices and social responsibility?
It gets to the heart of that Bezos paradox, right? This incredible ambition that built Amazon. Can it coexist with a genuine commitment to making the world better?
And that question goes beyond just Bezos and Amazon. We're seeing it across the tech industry, this concentration of wealth and power. It raises fundamental questions about fairness, accountability, even the future of capitalism.
Which brings us to that big leadership change. Bezos stepping down as CEO, handing the reins to Andy Jassy, the guy who built AWS. Does that signal a new direction for Amazon?
Well, Jassy's background suggests a continued focus on cloud computing, which is already where Amazon makes a ton of money. But he's also talked about sustainability and social responsibility. The question is, will those values actually translate into action, or just stay as nice ideas?
And what about Bezos? He's still the executive chairman, but he's more focused on Blue Origin now, his space exploration company. Does that mean he's leaving behind all those Amazon controversies?
Not necessarily. Remember, most of his wealth is tied to Amazon stock. His fortune is still linked to how well the company does and its reputation. It's hard to totally separate yourself from something that's so intertwined with your identity and your bank account.
True. Okay, so we've got this complex picture of Bezos, the entrepreneur, the innovator, the billionaire, the philanthropist. But what about Bezos the person? What shaped how he sees the world? Where did all this drive and ambition come from?
Let's go back to those articles about his parents. Jackie, his mother, being a teenager when he was born, overcoming all those obstacles to finish school and raise him. That kind of resilience can really stick with you.
For sure. Makes you wonder if those early experiences made him believe that anything's possible if you just work hard and defy the odds.
And his stepfather, Miguel, adopting Jeff when he was 4, instilling a strong work ethic. It adds another layer to the story, highlighting the importance of family, even when it's unconventional.
Yeah. And it's interesting, we're just now hearing about his biological father, Ted Jorgensen. They only reconnected later in life. Makes you think about that nature versus nurture thing we talked about. How much of who we are is predetermined,
Yeah,
and how much is shaped by our environment and what we go through.
that's a tough one to answer. But it reminds us that even someone like Bezos, who seems larger than life, he's still a product of his upbringing, just like all of us.
Absolutely. So how do we reconcile those personal influences with that public image Bezos has built, the visionary leader, the innovator, the sometimes ruthless businessman?
That's the puzzle we're trying to solve. And it becomes even more interesting when you consider his philanthropy. Remember our discussion about Carnegie and that gospel of wealth?
Right. The idea that the wealthy have a moral duty to use their money for good. Carnegie focused on building institutions like libraries and universities, things he thought would create opportunity and help people escape poverty. But Bezos seems to be doing something different.
Yeah, his efforts seem more targeted, like toward family homelessness and climate change. And of course, there's his passion for space exploration, which some see as a distraction from the problems we have right here on Earth.
Could it be that he sees space exploration as a long-term solution, like finding new resources or starting colonies on other planets?
That's what he often says. He thinks investing in space will lead to breakthroughs that'll benefit humanity in ways we can't even imagine. But it's a long game, one that doesn't necessarily help those struggling today.
It's that classic debate, immediate relief versus tackling the root causes, and there's no easy answer. But one thing that stood out to me was that Dolly Parton Award, giving her that $100 million Courage and Civility Award.
That was unexpected. Giving that much money to a celebrity philanthropist, a country music legend no less, definitely got people talking.
Some people loved it. They said he was recognizing Parton's decades of charity work, especially her focus on literacy in kids. But others said it was more about Bezos making himself look good than actually supporting Parton's efforts.
And they raised valid points about the power dynamics, this kind of mega philanthropy, where billionaires just give huge sums to certain causes. Does it really address the underlying issues that cause inequality?
It's a valid point, and it makes you think about the role of celebrity philanthropy. Does it really make a difference for social justice? But on the other hand, Dolly Parton is beloved. She's known for her generosity and connecting with people from all walks of life. It's hard to argue with her good intentions.
It's a reminder that even with complex issues and power imbalances, there are people who truly want to make things better. And sometimes those efforts come in surprising forms.
Exactly. So how do we weigh all this? How do we assess the impact of Bezos' philanthropy, his business practices, his vision? It's a lot to consider.
It is. And the story's not over. Bezos is still young, incredibly wealthy, and his influence keeps growing. The choices he makes in the next few years will have a huge impact on the world, for better or worse.
It's like watching a real-life drama unfold, with all its twists and turns, and the world is hooked. But there's one question that keeps coming back to me. What happens when a man who built an empire on constant growth decides to give most of it away?
Now that is where things get really interesting.
I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine giving away that much money. Billions and billions. It makes you wonder, how do you even start with that kind of philanthropy?
That's what makes this so fascinating. We've seen Bezos do some philanthropy with those specific initiatives, but giving away most of his fortune, that suggests something totally different. Maybe even a change in how he thinks.
So are we talking about a more strategic approach? Something more systemic? Could he target those root causes we talked about, like inequality, climate change, on a scale we've never seen before?
It's definitely possible. He could supercharge existing organizations, give them the resources to really expand their impact. Or he could create totally new ways to address these problems. Use his entrepreneurial skills and connections to do things differently.
It's like he's got all the chips in a high-stakes poker game, and the whole world is watching to see what his next move is. But there's a lot of pressure, too. Every decision will be scrutinized and debated.
Yeah, that comes with being one of the richest people in history. Your actions have a ripple effect. It goes way beyond just you. It's a level of influence and responsibility that's hard to grasp.
It's a lot to think about. But it also reminds us that individual choices still matter, even in a world run by big corporations and institutions. What Bezos does with his money could change the course of history.
And that brings us back to the beginning. What can we learn from Jeff Bezos' story? It's a story of ambition, innovation, the constant chase for growth. But it's also about the choices we make, the impact we have on others, and what we leave behind.
And his story isn't finished. We've seen Amazon rise, we've seen the controversies, the philanthropy, but now with this commitment to giving away his fortune, it's a whole new chapter. What will it be? What will Bezos focus on? And will he use his wealth to fix the problems some people say he helped create?
Those are the questions we're left with.
Yeah.
And the answers will not only shape Bezos' future, but maybe even the future of our planet and our society.
It's like we're watching a real-life drama unfold with all its ups and downs, and the world can't look away. But the big question for me is what happens when someone who built an empire on never slowing down decides to give it all away?
Now, that's the really interesting part. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Jeff Bezos, we turn to you, our listener. What do you think Bezos should do with his money? What kind of impact do you hope he'll make? What kind of world do you want to see him help create?
These are important questions to think about because in a way, they're not just about Jeff Bezos. They're about all of us. They're about the kind of world we want to live in and the role we all play in making it happen.
It's a good reminder that even as we're amazed by people like Bezos, we have our own power to make a difference. So keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep working to create a world that's fairer, more equal, and sustainable for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the limits of what's possible.